Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's after a long break that we have got together, with the grace of Allah. But there was no shortage of Arabs during my tour at all. Of course, I missed you. But there's so many Arabs this time. They made a much bigger crowd than ever before. This shows an overall interest in Ahmadiyyat by the Arab people from all over the world. And they were very responsive, mashallah, with the grace of Allah. They are different from Pakistani mullahs. Although they begin with rigid positions, but when they hear the Quran and the arguments, they immediately give in. That's the beauty of the Arab character. Some I have noticed were typical mullahs, they keep insisting on this and that. But I'm talking of the ordinary educated Arabs. They're very responsive, mashallah. Please. So, please.
Hazur, as usual, we would like Hazur to share with us the most exciting point of Hazur's tour.
The tour?
Yes.
Yes, the most striking part or the impression is that the Europeans, which had started becoming Ahmadis, have stabilized with the grace of Allah. And there is no longer any need for Tarif Qalb. The stage of Mu'allafatul Qulub is over now. They are forward, they are sacrificing, they are participating in every administrative work, and they are paying their subscriptions, financial subscriptions, with full volition. You don't have to tell them. And you can see the difference now. They have completely come over to the real living Islam. No longer the same dead look. I'm talking of mostly the people from Eastern Europe. Previously under the influence of communism, although they openly, expressed their loyalty and their affinity for Islam, but you could see it was just the mouth who was speaking. There was no heartbeat in the words they expressed. But this time it's a completely different picture. All their bodies, their souls are filled with love of Islam, and they're dedicated to spread the message around. There are some people I met from among them, from Albanians, who within a few months, maybe 6 months or more, of their having become Ahmadi Muslims, have converted 70 more to Ahmadiyya Islam, and they're all of the same quality, the same spirit and same, belonging, sense of belonging. So this is something which made me very happy, because although I know Bosnians were becoming Muslims, Ahmadi Muslims, and some others, but still a small percentage among them was totally given over. But this time a very large percentage, mashallah, has actually started feeling from within Ahmadiyyat, not from outside. And they are charged so much that they say that they are going to convert the entire country, all the people, to Ahmadiyyat with all their heart, with all their dedication. And they are very hopeful. They say, inshallah, we will be able to produce results. So this is the strongest impression which made me so happy during this tour, which I have shared with you, and then after the transition I will speak of some more. For this we are grateful, in a manner of speaking, to the mainly Saudi and Kuwaiti efforts to spread anti-Ahmadiyya propaganda among the Bosnians and the Albanian people. It's so vicious, so untrue, that previously when they accepted Ahmadiyyat, they did not know much of Ahmadiyyat itself as compared to other sects in Islam. So their belonging was largely because they had seen Ahmadis, they liked them, They knew they were true, dedicated people, loving people who befriended all the newcomers and so on. So it was largely the Ahmadiyya character which had influenced them, and they accepted Ahmadiyya. But they had not passed through the test of trials like they went through when these books were largely published and distributed. In hundreds of thousands, some people tell me. It was filthy, vicious anti-Ahmadiyya propaganda. What have you become? Don't go near Ahmadis, they're Kafirs, they're this and that, they're British agents, they're that agent and that agent, and so on and so forth. And vicious language was used against Hazrat Muslim. So this shook them up. This awakened them to a real desire to search for more, to investigate, to find out for themselves. And when the questions arose from them, then they were really attentive to listen to the answers and to find them satisfactory if they could, and then become Ahmadis in a new spirit and a revived spirit. And that is what happened every time. Every time in my question and answer sessions, they spoke of these allegations, these books. Some brought their books with them. I said, look here, this is what they say. And I let them exhaust themselves completely with all the allegations and fake things. And amazingly, when I started responding, they began to thaw, they began to melt, and slowly and gradually I could see the change. With the result that many times the response ended in great Nara Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Now we know, that sort of thing. It was so wonderful to see them change. Being Ahmadis, they had not yet the academic footing. The Ahmadiyyat was based more on love for the Ahmadi character than the deep conviction which is born out of thorough knowledge. So this time, this propaganda, anti-Ahmadiyya propaganda, has really made them interested in finding out more with reference to the Quran, Hadith, etc. And basically, I think they're Ahmadis temperamentally. In questions regarding this rise of Jesus to heaven and return, in questions regarding subordinate prophethood, when they heard our explanation about Imam Mahdi and things, some have said, this is absolutely right, this is how it should be. I mean, they couldn't believe how other people could believe in things other than these. So this propaganda, although it was in the beginning very biting and very caustic, it corroded, worked like acid on our hearts and left us very unhappy, because we knew it was false and it was one-sided. But ultimately I learned that asa'an takrahu shay'an wa khairul lakum. This has proved right in our case with regards to these Albanian and Boston people. So alhamdulillah, it's a very welcome change in them, and the thanks are due in a manner of speak to the enemies. And there were some demands from some, I think, people who were rather planted. I could see the attitude in the beginning. They were not just natural people whose curiosity had been aroused. They seemed to be planted with a fixed purpose and design. And although they were clean-shaven, but one could see that because the Khojas among the Boston Albanians are not keeping beards. They do not wear beards necessarily. Some do a little bit, but some are absolutely clean-shaven, like they're Khojas. So some of them were Khojas as well. I could see the way they spoke, they had knowledge of the Quran, the Hadith, they quoted them well. So there was an attempt to have a few people planted in the question answer sessions, so that the Bosnians and the Albanians would be naturally influenced by their own people speaking against Ahmadiyyat. But one thing must be given to their credit. Even these plants, by plants I mean who were planted into this session, they were much more fair-minded than I have come across the Pakistani ulama. No doubt about it. They remained courteous, although firm. They didn't hesitate to object, but when I answered, they waited for the answer to be completed. Until, with the grace of Allah, when they were left with no counter response on their side, they sometimes attempted to mislead people still after that, which showed that they had to serve a purpose. But there was no life left in them, no desire, no venom anymore. And this resulted in further, in furthering the cause of Ahmadiyyat among the ordinary people who watched and saw us locked in a battle of words. They seemed to be so visibly impressed by the quality of answers and their behavior, when in the end, instead of bowing down saying, yes, you have convinced us, by trying to evade the issue, turning it into a different direction, that they didn't like it. Previously, I remember when their Khojas used to stand up, they all applauded them with a much bigger and louder hand. Then they applauded me when I answered. So this is a very big change. Previously, if you have seen the old videos, you will see yourself. When I answered satisfactorily, they agreed, nodded, but with a sense of being defeated, not with a sense of belonging to us and being happy at what they discovered. Now this has changed, and when the Khojas came up with anything, they applauded them roundly and very strongly. This time I was amazed, the Khojas were left high and dry. They didn't get any response, any support from this new class of Ahmadis. They have grown mature, they have become mature with the grace of Allah and advanced a lot in the faith. Inshallah, they are going to bring about a revolution now. Another welcome change which I noticed was that they themselves started exposing their Khojas, and there certain habits which they didn't know were un-Islamic before. But this time they intentionally asked such questions about the Khojas' practices, how they practice Islam and make others bound to certain traditional habits. They had no idea that they are un-Islamic. Now, because of the contact with them, gradually they have started learning that these Khojas have not been practicing the Holy Quran and the Quranic teaching at all. So this time the questions were intended to expose them. Previously they were addressed to us that you practice differently and we know this is Islam, as if they were satisfied with the Khoja practices and they seem to support that practice as valid Islamic practice. No more so whatsoever. They know now that the Khojas are not right and they are selling Islam to us and benefiting out of their Islamic knowledge by selling their Islamic services to the common people. This is what has emerged so clearly, that the Khojas are no longer held as popular people among the Albanians and the Bosnians who have come into contact with the Jamaat and also the anti-Hindu propaganda. For instance, I'll explain. They deliberately asked me if it is Islamic to write the verses of the Holy Quran on potion charms and sell them to people for curing this or doing that for you, for gaining any benefit. I said, the selling of the verses of the Quran is so strongly condemned by God that one of the most painful punishment is described that God will not speak with them. God will not look at them. No worse Jahannam can be conceived than this much anger of God. He will look at the kuffar and others, and He will also show mercy to some of them. But how will He forgive them if He doesn't even look at them? So selling of the verses of the Quran, I told them, is the heinous crime. It will not be forgiven. And they responded so strongly to this. So yes, this is what they're doing. I said to read Surah Fatiha on a sick patient and to cure him and to use it as dua against all sorts of evil, this is not shirk. This is not selling of the verses, because you don't do it for the sake of getting money. But if you fix prices for this, which the Khojas do, then it's not at all Islamic. It is opposite to, contrary to Islamic teachings and traditions. So this time I noticed, having heard this from Ahmadiyyas, now they were repeatedly bringing it up and looking at the people who were Khoja minded, See, this is it. So they had a sense of liberation from the Khojas. This was a great thing. And other things also, they quoted, for example, how the Khojas charge for every nikah they make, at every death, they gain something. Even during Ramadan, one of them stood up and said, is it the Holy Quran which teaches you, or is it something else? The emphasize, is it the Holy Quran which teaches you that if you can't keep fast, you give that much money to the Khojas? See? I said, what I have read in the Holy Quran is, Fidyatun ta'amu miskeen. Are Khojas miskeen, masakeen? They are much richer than you are. So one of the Khojas who had started questioning on their behalf, he was most certainly a plant, a man appointed for this purpose. He stood up in defense. He said, no, he is misinforming you. The Khojas never say, give it to Khojas. They say, according to the Quran, they should give it to a common fund. I said, which common fund? Which is completely controlled by the Khojas? And where does the Quran say speak of any fund? Nowhere. You can give it to your relative, you can feed your relative, a poor relative, you can feed to any other miskeen who does not have means enough to feed himself properly and does not beg for people. Are the Khojas in that category? They said, no, certainly not. I said that, I told them this is another example of how they changed the Quran. And this is again a case of selling the verses of the Holy Quran cheaply. You see, they go to that extent. They completely distort the Quranic teachings and turn it to their advantage as much and as often as they possibly can. So this is an awareness of the Khoja character, which I'm sure is spreading now. After a while, as we are going also to take measures to teach every Bosnian and Albanian the basic requirements of life in Islam. When somebody is born, what you should do. When you have to do nikah, what you should do. when somebody dies, what you should do. 3 or more such occasions are all that they require to learn from Islamic point of view, that how should they perform the relevant ceremonies. Then everybody would become a Khoja and everybody would be free of them. So this is our next campaign, inshallah, and they are very happy to hear of this. Some classes were organized in Germany during the last year by the German Jamaat with such dedication and it's putting such labor throughout. The German Jamaat is very active, mashallah. At my instructions about 8 months ago, they organized these classes to teach ordinary Muslims from Bosnia and Albania how to get rid of the Khojas and how to perform the functions, Islamic functions which are essential in daily life themselves, how to say Jummah prayer and this and that. Now, within 15 days, they learned so much that now you can see, the independence in their eyes. They no longer have to depend on Khojas, and they now realize it. Islam is so simple. I told them, even if you ask Khojas, how many Khojas were there during the time of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to become imams, to do nikah, to do this and that? And the answer will be, if they're honest, none, no one whatsoever. So they're eating up your ignorance. Be enlightened and be independent. This plan, mashallah, is paying dividends with the grace of Allah.